So these are some of the things that I want to think about in the near term and share with you. Now, today really is our day of preparation. We've got some partly cloudy skies. It is going to be nice, but tomorrow it really is confined just to one single day where we're looking at widespread valley rain as well as Sierra snow. And then going into the weekend, this system really clears out quickly during the late afternoon on Friday and evening, and the weekend should be dry with some clouds. And then we'll take a longer look here because it's not just a weekend situation going into next week, which is usually very busy with people coming back for work or for school, the first full week in January for 2025. And there's just a lot going on. The weather's going to be nice, but it's a long-term pattern that could be a problem. And I do want to show you something that I think at least is very interesting as far as what we're starting to see with the way that things have developed so far in California. We are in a La Nina pattern right now. What that means is that the water in this part of the Pacific over here is cooler than normal. What we tend to see here, though, is this pattern emerge through our winter. We tend to see wetter than normal conditions for far northern California through the Pacific Northwest and even portions of Canada, and drier in Southern California. People always ask me, well, what does that have to do with me here in Sacramento or Elk Grove or Tahoe? Well, we're right in between here. So we've seen many dry La Nina years. We've seen many wet La Nina years. But I think the overall trend of wetter than normal for the north part of the state and drier for the south, that's something generally we tend to see with La Nina. And so far, we're seeing that. In fact, when you look at the statewide precipitation, this is rain in the bucket, or if it's snow that's melted and then added up in inches for places like, say, South Lake Tahoe, which is part rain and part snow, considering the season that we've had so far. Our rainy season goes back to October 1st of 2024. And the reason why it starts there versus a January to January situation, which is done for most of the country, is that, as we all know, our rainy season is very unique here on the West Coast and certainly in California. We start to see our stormy cycle begin, our wet season, right around October, and it starts to end right around when we go to April to May. But to get 12 months, we start it in October and it ends on September 30th of the following year. If we did it January to January, it split the rainy season right in the middle, and you really wouldn't have a good sense of what was going on. So this is what we have, and this is what we've seen so far. So when you consider the prime months of our rainy season, which is going to be October all the way through about March, we're right in the middle of this, and what we're seeing is this. Forget about the rain in the bucket, because obviously we always get more rain in Northern California than Southern California, at least almost always. But when you're looking at how far we are above normal for places like Eureka, Redding, and I can even go farther north, it's been far above average. So if you remember from that first thing that I showed you about La Nina, that's what we're seeing. Far Northern California, well above average. We're somewhere in between. For example, Sacramento is a little bit above, Stockton, Modesto a little bit below, so we'll call it even. And then far, far below in Southern California. I was there recently, and I'm telling you, it is grim. Everything is dirt brown, dry. There's no snow in the mountains. It was really warm in the 70s. So we're starting to see, at least for the first half of our prime rainy season, something resembling what we would expect for a La Nina pattern. With that said, it also translates to snowpack in the northern Sierra because of the strong storms that we've seen that were also cold. We're already halfway to what we would consider a full snowpack by the time we get to the end of our rainy season and our snow season by about April 1st. So that is very encouraging. This is also where the big reservoirs are, like Trinity, like Oroville, and like Shasta. Central Sierra, we're on our way. Certainly Southern Sierra, obviously lacking in snowpack. But when you take a look at all three zones, you average it out, we're in pretty good shape. I'm not too worried at the moment. So we really have to focus on not just storms, but we need the wetter ones. That's why far Northern California is doing so well. Your traditional storm comes in, you got low pressure, it moves along, and then it's out of here. But sometimes we get, and we saw this during last year, which was all of 2 days ago in 2024, we saw a big cycle where we had it set up with high pressure blocking this low, and it just sat out there for a while, pulled into all this subtropical moisture, which tends to have higher snow levels, but it's a really wet plume of moisture just aimed somewhere in California. It's an atmospheric river, and in that case, when it's warm, it's called Pineapple Express as a nickname, but it really does carry most of the water that we see for a season is going to be contained in these types of systems. So we're really watching for these more than anything else because we need water on the West Coast. We get it basically within about 6 months during our rainy season. If we don't get it, and we don't get atmospheric rivers, it's just not going to work and we fall into drought. So this is the current look of what we're seeing. We're starting to see the next system take shape. It's light, it's scattered, it's a lot of clouds, it's very sprinkly light, scattered showers. It's not a big deal, right? But then when we start to see it link up with what's going on off the coast, then you start to see how this is going to affect us. You can really see the outline of the jet stream bottoming out here. And then what happens is then we start to get an area of low pressure. As it cycles around and deepens, the pressure lowers, it picks up on some moisture, and then it's just a question of if it can move through our area or not. Occasionally, high pressure is just too strong and it starts to move off to the north. But this one really does have the perfect shape and the perfect structure to it that it's going to be able to move through our area during the day tomorrow. It's a quick hitter, though. After that, we see high pressure building in, and that's going to be about it. So for your forecast for today, which is on Thursday, it's going to be really nice. You know, yesterday, New Year's Day, there was a lot of cloud cover, some sprinkles, even a few light showers in some areas, but just sort of one of those gray, cold days. This is different. This is a gap in between what we're going to see cycle-wise, and we're going to see one nice clear day, highs near 58, 60 degrees in places like Sacramento with just a few high clouds drifting through. As we move forward, though, this is, like I said in the beginning, a day of preparation because tomorrow it is game on, and it is game on early. So between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning, we're going to be watching this system roll in. Now, this is what I call a classic winter storm, but a fast one. A splash and dash, so to speak, because all of this is going to come in quickly. It's going to go from a few clouds here or there, and then all of a sudden it's raining really hard, and that's going to be during the morning commute. Even though this is sort of an off week for us, it's going to rain during that critical time between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Just to start for Sacramento. It'll be delayed for Stockton, Manteca, Modesto, obviously, as you go further south. But I paused it right here because this is the middle of the day on your Friday, and we've got hard rain, straight up. We've got heavy snow in the mountains, so it's really going to be blowing. It's going to be low visibility. It's going to be big, huge, chunky flakes falling all at the same time. But then watch what happens. I fast forward just a couple hours, and it's wrapped up. In places like Sacramento and Elk Grove, we're just seeing some clouds. It's still hanging on for Stockton, Modesto, Manteca till about 2, 3 o'clock, and then even then, it's out. Even the snow is done. There's always this last little bit of moisture, which is going to happen in the middle of the night, but that's really more or less sprinkles. So we're narrowing our rain chances tomorrow to a very confined period from essentially 7 a.m. to about 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a morning and early afternoon system. As it comes in, that's when you're going to have your heavy rain ponding on the roads, likely a lot of spinouts and car crashes, unfortunately. That's when you're going to have chain controls pop up and very likely last through at least the rest of the sunlight hours during the day on Friday. Sun will go down, and at some point, I do believe they'll have to lift chain controls because the roads will be cleared and you'll be good to go. Following a storm that you have clear conditions moving in and a new pattern, you tend to see a lot of fog. So this is the outline, the classic outline that we look for in these futurecasts for widespread potential dense fog setting up in the morning. And also, if it lingers, maybe the clouds lift from the ground level. So now we're not talking about fog, we're talking about low clouds. And those are those cold, overcast days where it's really tough to get a lot of sunshine. That is possibly the case as we move into early Saturday morning. So your weekend's dry, but it just might be one of those cold, gray ways to start your weekend. What are we looking at precip-wise? I would say this is a pretty solid storm. We're looking at light rain in the valley, anywhere from 1/10 to maybe 1/4 of an inch. So generally light, not very impactful except for the period of time when it's raining. That's when you have lower visibility. Almost all the related issues are going to be on the roadways as far as your safety goes. But this amount of rain, all of the drainages, all of our systems can handle this. We're not expecting flooding or anything like that. But then once you start to get to the higher elevation, so once you start to get to the middle of the valley and then out toward the east side, some of our suburbs like Folsom, El Dorado Hills, Roseville, Rockland, Rancho Murrieta, get closer to Stockton, and again, out toward the east side, once you get to some of the lower foothills, then we're talking about 1/2 an inch, 3/4 of an inch, maybe even up to an inch for the higher terrain. But notice that it's not really bright red over here that we often see with a really strong storm in the Sierra. We're going to get more, but this translates to about, I would say, 3 to 6 inches ballpark within that confined period of time for snow. And then it's going to be quickly moving out of here. If this kind of system were able to stall out and last longer, then we'd be talking about more road impacts, snow impacts, and things like that. But this is going to be a quick hitter. Even then, I would still think about anyone having early travel on Friday. Heads up, you're going to have wet roads. Anything in the middle of the day on Friday that might be compromised because of the rain and the snow moving in. The Sierra snow is adequate. It's going to be a refresh for the resorts. It's going to be impacting the roads. And then it's going to be out of here. So the weekend is mostly going to be dry. I would just say mostly because perhaps maybe at midnight or so between Friday and Saturday, there might be a little bit left over. But we're really talking about dry Saturday and Sunday. I always like to look ahead just in case there's something else, because if we very quickly go from a dry pattern to a wet pattern, is it going to stick around? And the answer is, at this point, it does not look likely at all. I'll show you the 10-day forecast in a second here, but I want to go even past that. I want to look out not only a week, but 2 weeks. What does that look like as we go all the way out into the middle of January? It appears at this point that we are looking at warmer than normal conditions for the first week and second week of January. And also we are looking at drier than normal conditions. And this is not just La Nina here. This is the whole West Coast all the way up into Canada. So this is a pattern that looks very likely to emerge once we go past the 10-day forecast here. With that said, we'll wrap it all up. We're looking at a dry day today. We've got our storm, a potent little guy, but it's only going to last for 1 day. And then it's out of here. Your weekend is going to be Saturday and Sunday. And both of those days are dry, although watch for fog early in the morning. And then going into next week, the early signs of that new pattern I just showed you, where it's going to be dry. It's also going to be warm. Our average highs this time of year, right around 55, 56 degrees. We're going to be above that, near 60 degrees, starting on Tuesday next week. And that goes all the way into next weekend.